All right, welcome to Algebra and Midlothian High School. As most of you guys are going to be freshmen this year, I just wanted to do a really quick introduction to our class and some of the classroom procedures. It's going to be brief because I know you have 3 videos to watch tonight, and you'll have to cover the classroom procedures, classroom instructions, then you have to go over the integer rulebook video, and then you also have to go over the order of operations. Hopefully they'll all be short, maybe about a maximum of about 30 minutes. So with that being said, let's go ahead. I'm going to jump right into the classroom procedures. Okay, just want to do a really quick introduction to my class. It's kind of a mess right now because it's before school starts. I'm trying to get everything in order. But basically what's going to happen is when you come in, you're going to notice the rules on the wall to your left. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but basically they just say, treat each other with respect, all the basic rules you get in all your other classes. But when you come in, you're going to have a couple things you're going to notice. First thing you want to do is you want to pick up a calculator from the tray that's right by the door there. That's where you put them up when you leave. That's where you pick them up when you come in. I do not have to tell you to get a calculator. From time to time, I will tell you that no calculator is needed, but for the most part, just come in and automatically pick up the calculator. Okay. Also, when you come in, you're going to notice a couple things. You're going to notice a tray right here. You are my only algebra class, but basically what happens is when we have homework due, or when you do an assignment in class or you take it home, then what happens is that you will turn that homework into the tray here. Because you are first period, your tray is on top. It should be easy to remember. Never turn anything into the folder, always turn it on top of the folder. The stuff in the folder is papers for you to pass out when you guys have free time and so forth. Okay? Also, you will notice on the board here, which I'm going to put labels up later, you'll see 5 folders. Those 5 folders are going to be the folders that that have your work if you're ever absent. So if you're ever absent, you just go to the day that you're absent. If it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and go straight to those folders and pull out anything in there that you may need for work. That saves you from having to ask me 1,000 questions if for some reason you did not go on Blackboard. All your information should be found on Blackboard, but if for some reason you don't access Blackboard or whatever, you come in, you grab the paper off the wall there. You should never have to come to me and say, what I miss. I can't stand that question, so please keep that in mind as you go. Okay, so as you come in, like I said, you've come in the door there, you've grabbed yourself a calculator, you've turned in your assignment. It needs to be done at the beginning of class. I'm not going to remind you all the time, you just need to do it. Picked up any missing work or late work you need from being out. And then basically you grab your seat. Now, if anybody that's had brothers or sisters or that's had me before know that I change my desk a lot. I don't normally have a standardized seating, but just come in and sit down where you want to, or if you do have assigned seats, you'll sit there. The next thing I want you to take notice is up here on the board. Okay, on the board over here, you'll see 2 things: algebra and geometry. I teach both. In algebra, you will see the objective. Like for when you come in on Monday, it read, students will be introduced to the instructor, classmates, classroom procedures. Students will also be introduced to the flipped classroom. Okay. The objective is something important that I've never really talked to students about, so I want to start that this year. The objective tells you what you should have accomplished before you walk out of my classroom. So if you walk out of my classroom and you do not learn what the objective states, then you are behind, meaning that for that particular lesson or whatever, you're not prepared for the test. Okay? As you move down the board, you'll see the POD stands for plan of the day. That's what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do when you would have come in on Monday, which we did, is student teacher intros. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to do flipped classroom. We're going to talk about the flipped classroom. Okay? It's not a full out detail, and it is subject to change. So that's just kind of the plan of what we're going to do. And then in red, you'll always notice your homework, and your homework is to watch the class video for this particular day, which this is actually being recorded before you have come to class, so that won't be your homework. So anyhow, that is that. Then what you'll do is you'll take a seat. Again, if you haven't already taken a seat, you'll take that seat, and you'll just wait for class. When the bell rings, you need to be ready to go. Okay? What happens is every now and then, and not right now, I have some beautiful artwork on the board, but every now and then you're going to have a bell ringer. Okay? If there's a bell ringer on the board, you take out a sheet of paper, you work that bell ringer like I will have showed you when we talk about bell ringers in class, and that's what you do until I come into the classroom. When the bell rings, we need to be ready to go. Pencils sharpened, you need to be in your seat, your work needs to be out. And that's one of the hardest things for freshmen to do, because for some reason you guys are just you're chatty Cathys and you don't want to work. But again, in order for our flipped classroom to work, in order for us to have very minimal or very little homework or none at all, you've got to be in your seat prepared when that bell rings. So that is one of the things I'm going to be more stressful on this year. I'm going to be making sure that you are doing that every time that you come in, and I'm going to be hard on you guys, so make sure you do that. Now again, that's just a very quick, and then again, by the time you're done with the bell ringer, I should have taken attendance and I should have been in the class, and we should be good to go. Again, that's a very brief introduction to our classroom procedures. There's going to be other things that you're going to need to know as we go. We'll talk about CTGs, our collaborative thinking groups. We'll talk about signing the tardy log if you're late. That's a new thing I'm doing this year. Tutoring logs is another thing that I have this year. So there's several things that we still need to discuss, but we'll do that as time progresses. All right, so that's basically the introduction to the basic procedures of our classroom. If you have any questions, let me know tomorrow.
Build us a little campfire.
An 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and you are going to fold it hamburger style. Go ahead and fold that hamburger style. Okay, there's my paper and it's folded hamburger style. You're going to do that again, fold it again hamburger style. And then you're going to do it one more time, folding it hamburger style. Okay. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and open it back up, and you will notice that there are 8 spaces that you would be able to write. We're not going to write anything just yet because we still have some folding to do. We are going to make a book out of this. And so for us to continue making the book, what we're going to do is we're going to fold it one time, go back to that very first fold that we did. And you'll notice that you have a side that is open and you have a side that is folded. What we're going to want to do is cut a line from the folded side to the middle of our folded paper. So from the folded side, you can cut or tear, probably cutting would be better, but cut just to the middle of that folded paper so that whenever you open it up, you have a hole in the middle of your paper, okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it and make a tent out of it where the folds are at the top and the cut is at the top. And what you're going to do is you're going to notice how it's kind of wanting to spread apart here in the middle. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and let it do that and push it in. And as you're doing that, it makes a plus sign. Then you're going to fold it over to make a book out of it. Okay? Let me show you that again. So once you've cut your paper, you're going to take it and you're going to fold it to where the folds are at the top, and you're going to push it in until you're able to just fold all the papers over. Okay? And what we want to do with that is we want to go ahead and write some things on this book for us to use as a reference. I'm just going to title this Integer Rule Book. And I'm going to put my name on it. You don't have to use my same title, but you will want to put some kind of a title on it, and especially your name on it so that we know it's yours. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn the page, and we are going to call this page adding. When we add integers, there are certain rules that we want to follow to get the right answer. So then we have same signs and we have different signs. You have to do something slightly different when the problem looks a little different. With same signs, you will add the numbers and you will keep the sign. So let's look at some examples with that. We have -8 plus -3. Since they are the same sign, they're both negative, we're going to add the numbers and get 11, and it's a negative sign because they're both negative. If we have 6 plus 5, again, they're both positive, and so we're going to add the numbers and keep the positive sign. Now with different signs, what we'll do is we will subtract the numbers, and we're going to take the sign of the higher number. Take the sign of the higher number. And let's look at a couple of examples for that. Let's do 10 plus negative 3. As we look at 10 plus negative 3, we have different signs, so we're going to subtract the numbers and get a 7. The higher number is a positive, so we'll keep it a positive 7. Negative 8 plus 2. Again, they're different signs, so we're going to subtract the numbers and get a 6 and keep the sign of the higher number, which is negative. Our next page is subtracting. And with subtracting, we want to change it to an addition problem because addition with integers is much easier. So we are going to change the subtract, to add, and add the opposite. Once we're finished with that, then we just follow the adding rules. Okay, so let's do a couple of examples with that. We have 5 minus 9. Notice that this is a subtraction problem, so we will take that subtraction and change it to an addition. And then once this subtraction is taken out, you'll notice that that's a positive 9. So then this is a negative 9 because that is the opposite. So we are changing the subtract to an add and the positive 9 to a negative 9. Add the opposite. So then you follow your adding rules. These are different signs, so we subtract the numbers 4 and take the higher sign negative. Negative 11 minus 4. Again, this is a subtraction problem, so we're going to write down the negative 11. That does not change. The minus turns to a plus, and the 4 turns to a negative 4. These are the same signs, so we're going to add the numbers 15 and keep the sign of negative. Let's try another example. We have negative 7 minus negative 8. Again, we're going to keep that first number, negative 7, change the subtraction to addition, and change the negative 8 to a positive 8. Notice that they are different signs, so we will subtract the numbers 1 and take the higher sign positive. Our next page is going to be multiplying and dividing. With multiplying and dividing, when you have the same signs, your answer is positive. For example, 4 times 5, remember that multiplying a number with a set of parentheses, that means multiply when you have a number next to a set of parentheses. And so 4 times 5, they're the same sign, so your answer is positive, 20. Another example, negative 3 times negative 8. They are the same sign, so your answer is positive, 24. If we tried a fraction, negative 1/5 times negative 5. First of all, you notice that they're the same sign, so you know that your answer is positive. Now remember, when you multiply a fraction times a whole number, you put a 1 underneath the whole number, and then you can multiply straight across. So negative 1 times negative 5 is a positive 5. 5 times 1 is 5, and that turns into a 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Of course, you also remember that whenever you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you can also cross cancel. So this 5 goes into this 5 one time, and so then negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1, and then 1 times 1 is 1, so you get the same answer. All right, so then we also have what happens if you have different signs. Your answer is negative. Now this is only with multiplying and dividing. Got to keep your rules straight. So an example of that would be -8 times 5. Notice that they are different signs. So you're going to have an answer of a negative. So this would be -40. Or what if we did 4 times -4? Remember that a dot in between two numbers means multiply. So this would be 4 times -4. This would be a -16 because we had different signs. Now that's your integer rule book. You're going to keep this with you.
Order is all around us. It's naturally occurring in our world. It's in cooking. You can find order at school. You have a class schedule. You don't go 1, 3, 5 periods. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you're born, you learn how to walk, jog, run, and then sprint and bolt. Math is no different. So let's check out order of operations in mathematics. Sorry, I thought I messed with you. Kind of caught you off guard, didn't it? Probably because what you were expecting was for you to turn on this camera or for the screen to come up and you see the word PEMDAS, and then maybe you expected the teacher to be here. That's the natural order of things. By nature, we have a lot of things that go in order. Math is exactly the same thing. Math has a specific order. So what we're going to talk about is the order of operations. This is probably redundant for a lot of you guys. You probably already know the order of operations, PEMDAS, or Pretty Please My Dear Aunt Sally is how I've learned, but I just want to quickly review it. I want you to get it down in your notes so that you have a quick reference to it later and you have access to pull it whenever you need it. Alright, so order of operations. PEMDAS is probably what you've learned. If I switch this, okay, so that I can read it down this way. Every letter, it stands for something. It's an acrostic or an acronym for something else, okay? For example, P stands for parentheses. So in a math problem, if we have parentheses, we do the parentheses first. That means that what you're going to learn is that probably moving out of 5th, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, you see numbers inside of parentheses, you add those two or subtract those two numbers together, and then you have your answer, and then you do the rest of the problem. One thing that you're going to learn in algebra is that you're going to have to distribute in order to get rid of parentheses. So when we work a parentheses, we're either going to do the operation inside the parentheses or we're going to distribute in order to get rid of parentheses. Somehow we've got to eliminate the parentheses before we can move on with our problem. And you'll see that as we go. So the parentheses is the first thing that we do in a math problem. The next thing that we do is exponents. Hopefully you all know what an exponent is. Exponents are the superscripted numbers, little tiny numbers. At the top of another number, like 10 to the second power, that's an exponent. The 2 is the exponent. You can also have exponents on variables. You can also have exponents on parentheses. So the small, tiny, superscripted number, big number small number at the top, that is your exponent. Okay? After you've gotten rid of your parentheses, you will do your exponents. Sometimes you'll have to do your exponents in order to get rid of the parentheses so they work hand in hand. But start with parentheses, then do your exponents next. Okay? The next two are interchangeable, your M and D. M, of course, most of you know already, is multiplication. Okay? And D is division. Okay? These go hand in hand. These are interchangeable. Okay? So it could be PEMDAS if you wanted it to be, because you could do parentheses, exponents, division, multiplication, but instead we say PEMDAS because it's easier, a little ring off the tongue better. But we do multiplication, division in either order. So you can multiply first or you can divide first, it doesn't matter. So parentheses, exponents, now you're at multiplication after you've done those, then you do division if you have that, and then the last two, if you haven't figured that out already, are addition, okay, and subtraction. And these as well are interchangeable, meaning that you could do addition after subtraction or you could do subtraction after addition. It doesn't make any difference which order these go in, okay? So that's PEMDAS. Another one that you'll hear, and maybe you've learned this, I'm old school, this is how I was taught. It was Pretty Please My Dear Aunt Sally. So it's Pretty Please My Dear Aunt Sally. Everything is the same. Notice, it's still the same. Okay? Except when you get right here, that E has turned into a P, and that is because the P, when I went to school, I was taught as powers. We don't refer to exponents as powers as much as we used to when I was younger, but that is another way to memorize it. Pretty please, my dear Aunt Sally. Just don't get the two P's confused, okay? Again, most of you probably understand PEMDAS. Again, we're not going to do any examples over this. I think that you guys understand this. I pray that you guys understand this. We are going to practice this tomorrow in class. I want to keep the video short because you've watched a lot of information on day one trying to play catch up since we had a short class. But get this in your notes so that you have it for later. All right, if you have any questions, let me know tomorrow.